The president's choice to enter into a war with Iran has not been widely popular with Congress, as Sarah was just discussing. It hasn't been popular with the American people either. So how is it impacting Trump's approval rating? CNN's Harry Enten here now to run the numbers. So Harry, Fox was one of the initial polls, right, in terms of showing how the Iran war was sitting. It didn't really show that there was a big issue with it initially. Things are changing this morning in this latest poll that we have out.
That's exactly right. Look, when there was this slew of initial polls that came out, the Fox News poll was the one initial poll that did not show that the war was unpopular. That has changed. Trump has lost his one good poll when it comes to the Iran war, because just take a look here. Net approval rating of U.S. military action in Iran. In early March, it broke even, right? 0 points. What that essentially means is 50% approved, 50% disapproved. But down it goes. Look at this now. The net approval rating for the U.S. military action in Iran, negative 16 points. Just 42% of the American public approve of it. 58% disapprove. So now we're looking at basically every single poll in which the clear plurality or majority of Americans disapprove with the U.S. military action in Iran. Trump can no longer point to a poll that actually shows that among the general public at large, that the American public actually approve of this military action.
So this is the overwhelming for the Iran war. When it comes to how President Trump is handling Iran in general, what do we see?
So you see this negative 16 points, you think that's bad, but look at Trump's handling of it. It's even worse. Oh my. Okay, Trump's net approval rating of Iran. Look at this. Overall, 28 points underwater. Very, very unpopular Donald Trump's actions are when it comes to Iran. And look at those in the center of the electorate. Look at independents. Whew! Negative 58 points. 58 points underwater Donald Trump is when it comes to Iran. And of course, this has been dominating politics over the last month. And so what we see here is the U.S. military action in Iran, not popular in a poll. It used to be actually not so bad in. And Donald Trump's handling of it, even worse. And those in the center of the electorate, you can barely find any independents at this point who approve the U.S. military action in Iran.
So earlier this week, the president's overall approval numbers were not great. I think they had you saying, yikes. Where do they stand in this Fox News poll?
You know, we have been talking about in poll after poll after poll. Look, you can look at one poll and you see, okay, Donald Trump's hit a new all-time low. And you go, okay, maybe an outlier. Then you see 2, then you see 3, then you see 4. And here, how about number 5? Okay, Trump's net approval rating. In March of 2025, according to Fox News, he was at minus 2 points. Look at where he is now, a term too low. 18 points underwater, according to Fox News. There is simply put no poll you can point to at this point at which Donald Trump is either at or near a record low. And this is yet another one, and he is just struggling mightily. This Iran war is, simply put at this point, a few weeks in, not popular, and it is becoming less popular the longer it goes on.
Would you support troops on the ground in Iran on this point?
No, I mean, absolutely, 100%. Crystal clear from the beginning, no.
This war is now in its going into its 4th week. There are more questions than answers. We're not getting answers from the administration on the end game.
Coming out of this briefing today, I don't have any confidence whatsoever that they have a plan, a strategy, even very clear goals for what they want to do next.
Everyone needs to get the same briefing we received today and make that decision. Is it right to go into a protracted, elongated war where soldiers are going to die? And right now, I am adamantly opposed to boots on the ground, based on the information that I have.
Joining me now in the group chat, we have Congressman Cory Mills. He's a Republican from Florida, member of the House Armed Services Committee. I wanted to talk to you because obviously you are a military man, but you've also been in these briefings. Answer the question from Nancy Mace. Do you see a plan, or do you see a protracted war?
Well, I don't see a war for sure. That's not what the president's objective has been from the very beginning. I mean, if you think back, for example, to 2011 in Libya, one of the primary reasons that we went in there, we didn't declare a war, but a hostility, as the Department of Justice had clarified under UN regulations, is that there was no boots on the ground. It was about trying to protect innocent lives of civilians there. And I think with 40,000 plus people being completely just massacred within the streets by trying to do what we would call the First Amendment, I think that the president looked at this, looked at the overall nuclear threat. And I think that when we saw the fact that recently they were even launching hypersonic ballistic missiles.
But let me stop you there.
They didn't have. Well, I just want to finish the talk.
No, here's the thing.
Because we're calling it a war, but it's not actually a war.
Okay, so So you're saying that. I think by most average people's understanding of seeing bombings every day,
Right.
they think they're looking at a war. And then when they hear
But
someone
why
like
wasn't it a war in Libya then?
Lindsey Graham has talked about taking Karg Island and compared it to Iwo Jima. Let me play this for you.
So here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Karg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil, control that island, let this regime die on a vine. We got 2 Marine expeditionary units sailing to this island. We did Iwo Jima. We can do this.
Then I had Mike Herodopoulos on this show, Republican from Florida, and I asked him about boots on the ground. Here was his reply.
The last thing we want is boots on the ground. As you mentioned, our own son is in the United States military, and I'm very cognizant. I know what not only he, but all of his friends are thinking right now, and we're optimistic we can finally take Iran off the map. That is all of our goal.
Well, let me just start out by saying that Lindsey Graham doesn't speak on behalf of the Republican Party, and certainly not on behalf of most Americans who...
He speaks a lot for the White House.
Well, I'll tell you right now, though, but if you look at it, I mean, Lindsey Graham would be willing to start a war over someone basically, porch pirating one of his Amazon packages.
So are you worried the president listens to him?
Well, the president listens to everyone, but that doesn't make his final decision. I mean, the president is one of those individuals that he collects intelligence from all areas, but at the end of the day, it's his decision. He determines imminence, as Tulsi Gabbard talked about, and he gets to see intelligence that, not all of us get a chance to see because he gets it from so many different factions within the IC community.
But you're mentioning Tulsi Gabbard. That's a great example. Her chief of staff basically exited with a resignation letter saying that Iran was not an imminent threat.
Her chief of staff also, as it was recently released, that he wasn't in a majority of the briefings that actually Tulsi was giving to the president and vice versa. Even John Ratcliffe, who is the CIA director and former ODNI who filled Tulsi Gabbard's position, even made it clear that yes, there was in fact nuclear capabilities that had been developed and that they were only moments away from being able to do so.
So what I'm hearing from you is you're in the camp of there was an exact imminent threat and that you're not calling it a war even as we amass troops heading to the region, including land combat commander and paratroopers.
I think that it's always the case. And look, I came from the 82nd Airborne Division. I served proudly in the 82nd, served in combat with the 82nd Airborne Division. But it's interesting that no one was calling it a war whenever Obama found it to be totally fine in 2011 to launch for 7 months, by the way. 7 months for Libya.
I don't want to give you a hard time, but the people who are on their way there are not going to do what happened with Obama. They are going to be in a mission.
But let's go ahead and face the facts. We deployed troops to Kuwait. We deployed troops to Saudi Arabia. We deployed, and none of them ever actually had gone into certain areas. They were actually a pre-positioned, basically contingent.
So that's
the idea as well is that forced presence and force protection is a very important thing in the military. Being able to demonstrate strength actually does get results in negotiations, and we've seen that time and time out. So having positions actually prepared and have people in the country doesn't mean we're putting boots on the ground and war starting.
Look, I'm with the congressman here. Escalate to de-escalate. That is a path forward, and I think that's what we're seeing.
Here's the word from James Mattis, okay, former defense secretary. I can't identify a lot of good options. You can say it's over. You can even declare victory, and guess what? The enemy gets a vote.
And guess what? James Madison, I couldn't identify him as a good Secretary of Defense, and that's why he also didn't last.
Does the enemy not get a vote?
The enemy always has to be right 1% of the time. We have to be right 100% of the time. That's always been the case. But the reality is this. If we would have done nothing, we would have allowed 47 years of actual conflict against the Americans. If you go all the way back from the time that they, took over 55 hostages, or the fact that they bombed the Beirut bombing, or the fact that Qasem Soleimani and the Quds Force was killing Americans across the globe with proxy militias everywhere, to include the EFPs that was maiming 600 plus people. So, the idea is that we're already at conflict with them. This is an evil dictatorship and regime who was killing young women like Mahsa Amini for the fact that she didn't want to wear a hijab. This is an oppressive area that basically subjugated women. And
well,
that
then
was
let me follow up on that
tens of
last
thousands of
idea.
people.
We heard voices from Iran in the show earlier talking about feeling disappointed, feeling like if this administration walks away and they are left with a more angry, aggressive regime, that the U.S. would have betrayed them. You have served. You've heard this argument in Afghanistan. What do you tell them now?
Well, I can tell you one thing that we need to look at is who our global partners are in that region. If you look at what the UAE has said,
are they right to feel betrayed?
The KSA, I don't think that the president's portrayed him well. When he said help was on the way, was it not? And so I think that they're getting a little ahead of their skis. And also the fact is that you don't go ahead and tell a forecast to the enemy what we're going to do. We don't give definitive timelines. Here's when we're coming out, because what you do is you watch what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, where they essentially sit back waiting for counterattack, counterinsurgency of a transitional government. And so you don't show your cards at every single poker table. And the president's basically, to quote him, escalating to de-escalate, but he's also guaranteeing that all options are on the table for the regime to consider. So this is really about trying to ensure that this doesn't become a bigger global conflict and we can get peace and stability within the region, and the Iranian people can select their next leader, whether that be Reza Pahlavi or whether that be someone from inside,
a monarchist,
transitional. Well, not even a monarchical. He doesn't want to come in as a monarchy.
We'll bring you back to talk
Reza
more about it,
that.
because you've raised a lot of ifs, and a lot of people have questions about that. Certainly in the polling, people are questioning what you're saying.